Hi there, you're very welcome to this second part in our ongoing series on what it means to know God, and we're starting a journey. We're going to climb up a mountain to discover who God is. But before we start our journey properly, before we get up to base camp, let's pick up on some of the arguments that we were thinking about last time. You know, if we're honest, we know that there is something more that can be physically felt and seen in the world around us. We desire to worship something or someone. And the Christian philosopher Blaise Pascal described this as like having a God-shaped vacuum in our hearts. We all realise, though, that we don't live in a perfect world. We know innately that things are not quite right. And we realise this increasingly as we grow up and explore the world around us. So we can clearly say we know right from wrong. We have a moral awareness of the world around us. We want to see justice done. We want to see sins forgiven. We want to have guilt atoned for. And this moral sense of right and wrong just didn't evolve. We are the only creatures to have this innate sense. Yes, conscience surely has biological components since our mind is involved, but science can only know evidence of the existence of the universe, of the conscience. It can't really assert its origin. So while we have this basic sense of right and wrong, which God has written in our hearts, the impact of sin on our lives means that we must be open to having our consciences formed and its judgments refined. But why? In our own strength, we can reach out to God. We can come into a personal relationship with Him. But can we really? From God's perspective, we can't really. The Bible tells us that He has written a law of knowing Him into our hearts. However, we know that there are many obstacles that stop us from coming into the fullness of relationship with God and using the inborn faculty in our hearts to do that, and do that in a way which honours Him. One writer put it like this: the human mind is hampered in the attaining of such truths, not only by the impact of the senses and the imagination, because if we believe in a creator God, then He must be so vast and unimaginably big and complex, but also by disordered appetites, which are the consequences of our sin. So it happens that we easily persuade ourselves that what they would not like to be true is false, or at least doubtful. That is why we all innately stand in need of being enlightened by God's revelation. We're not saying here that our conscience, our mind, is removed from the intellect, but rather that the intellect, influenced by sin and disordered appetites, tries to persuade us of other ways of thinking. Hence we attempt either to suppress the truth, or at least consider it doubtful and open to alternative interpretation. That is why we stand so much in need of God's word. Consider two positions here. Firstly, there are many who don't know God, and the Bible writes about this in Romans chapter 1. And it makes 3 points. First point is that what can be known about God has been revealed since the beginning of time. Secondly, since the beginning of time, God's creation, the world, we can see His invisible power and His divine nature. It's there for everyone to see. That's the second point. And thirdly, people are without excuse in coming to know who God is. These three evidences in Romans chapter 1 as an example, can be seen as valid proofs for the existence of God, even though some people reject them. Their rejection of the evidence does not mean that the evidence itself is invalid. Only those who reject the evidence are evaluating wrongly. But contrast that with people who do know God. They might struggle because no one has physically ever seen God. And Peter writes about that in 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 8. He writes, even though we have not seen Him, we love Him and we are filled with an inexpressible joy. Continuing, though you have not seen Him, you love Him, and even though you do not see Him now, you believe in Him and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy, for you are receiving the end result of your faith, the salvation of your souls. How can Peter say that? Well, he can say that because he knows God. He is tapping into that innate sense of who God is deep down in his heart. I just want to play out this video by this great song by Martin Smith, one of my favourite singer-songwriters, and this song called You Are My Salvation. Listen to these words and let your heart sing to God. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.